I've got my emotional support water bottle and my Tortured Poets Department cardigan. Let's get into it. April was a weird month for me. I feel like I was pretty consistently fighting against a reading slump, which definitely dictated the types of books that I read. This is kind of a silly thing, but I also got a Switch for my birthday. A lot of the time that I probably could have been reading, I was actually just playing Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing. It felt like reading was not necessarily a top priority for me this month, which wasn't really what I was planning on. But then when I went back and looked at all of the books I had read this month, I did read 6 books, which feels like more than I actually did. 5 of them are fiction, 1 of them is nonfiction, and I won't talk about the nonfiction. Five books is certainly nothing to scoff at. So we're gonna talk about them now. And again, they are all in the same genre, all very, very specific types of books that I read when I'm trying to fight a reading slump. So here we go. The first book that I read was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I really, really liked it. It follows Emily Wilde, who is a scholar. She's a professor that is, as the title explains, writing an encyclopedia on fairies. There are kind of lower fairies like sprites and nature, tiny little spirit fairy things. There's also larger high fairies that are more human-like and more powerful and dangerous, and she is just cataloging as many as she possibly can. So she goes to this remote town that kind of was giving Scandinavian, Norway, Greenland vibes, and she is very socially awkward. She's super, super smart, but she can't really relate to people that well because she's just dived right into her studies and an entirely different race that she spends most of her time with. So it's kind of fun to read about a really quirky, awkward character, but you know that she is really, really smart. And there is a romance to it. So her scholarly rival also comes to this town that she's in under the guise of helping her write the encyclopedia and potentially doing it together. And she does not like him, but it's portrayed that he actually kind of likes her, likes her, but she's just not having any of it. So their interactions were so cute, so sweet, so fun. I really liked the fantasy aspect of it. It definitely was low stakes, a very cozy, enjoyable reading experience for about 85% of the book. There is a chunk near the end where the best way that I can describe it is just kind of walking through a fever dream come to life. It was very odd, very weird. I was lost a lot of the time, not totally sure what was happening. It was very descriptive, but also not really saying anything at all. So that kind of balanced it out. I love the format of this book. The pages are very floppy. It also has kind of like uneven pages that make it feel like you're reading kind of somebody's journal, which is how this book is formatted. It's Emily Wilde's notations in her field notebook. So I did like the format of the writing style, and that kind of contributed to just the coziness of it. There would be times where it feels like everything is taking place in the present tense, but then the next chapter is like, well, last night I fell asleep in a forest and a sprite stole all of my clothing. The chapter starts were always so abrupt because it's like somebody's personal diary. So that was a fun dynamic to add into something like this. And all of that combined, the coziness of it, the love story was really, really sweet and romantic. I very much enjoyed the confession of love at the end. It was just like, had me smiling, had me laughing. It was so kind of awkward in a really sweet way. But there is just that little section near the end where I was so confused and so lost and just didn't really like it that much. So I'm giving this a 4 stars, which is still great. And I would still recommend this book, but I was hoping for a 5-star out of this one, but we're good. That was book number 1. So the next book that I read was a book of the month pick, and it is Happily Never After by Lynn Painter. I've heard so many good things about Lynn Painter. She is beloved in especially the rom-com reading community that I've seen, and I had never read any of her books before. This is her first one that I picked up, but because I had seen so much about her, I thought I might as well pick it up. And again, it was book of the month, so it was just easy to choose that. So this book follows Sophie and Max, and we open up and Sophie is getting married and her fiance is not a nice man. He is cheating on her for the second or third time, multiple occurrences of him cheating. Sophie does not want to call off the wedding herself because she fears that if she were the one to call it off, her family, her dad, would still absorb all of the cost for paying for it. And she doesn't think that that's fair. So instead of her calling it off, she asks Max to come, who is a professional objector in weddings. When the officiant says, "Does anybody know of a reason that these two should not be married?" Max stands up and objects to the wedding. And then that's kind of the time where he can say, oh, well, you know, this person is cheating on this person, or I don't think they'll be good together. And it ends up not being called off by the bride or the groom. So that is what Sophie asks Max to come do. He comes, they call off the wedding, great. Then we jump forward in time and Sophie and Max kind of meet up again, and it turns out that Max actually needs her help in calling off a wedding. They start doing it together, and Sophie joins this little side business with Max objecting to weddings. And then of course they, you know, fall in love and it's fun and cute and whatever. So the premise of this was actually kind of adorable and I was interested in it. And it was good. It was a easy, fast read, which is exactly what I needed at the time because I had tried to read a couple of books that were on my TBR that I was hoping to read for April, and I had like a brick of a fantasy book and I wanted to start the Red Rising trilogy, and I tried a couple different books and my brain was just not there at all. So I picked up this Lynn Painter book and flew through it, and it just felt good to finish a book at the time, even though I didn't love it. I thought that the characters kind of lacked depth. It was a bit surface level. The story was really cute, but I just didn't really connect with either of them. It was just nice. It checked the box for what I needed at the time, but it's not necessarily a book that I would consistently recommend. But I gave this one a 3 because, again, in the mindset that I was in, this is the book that I needed to read because I just needed to start and finish something without feeling like I was dying inside. And this was perfect for that. 3 out of 5 stars. My first Lynn Painter book. I think I would still like to try to read some of her other ones. This is a pretty new release of hers, so I want to read the books of hers that people love her for, but this one was fine overall. The next 2 books I actually read on Kindle, and I did just get this Kindle this month as well, and so I kind of went a little crazy just buying some Kindle books. So I finished 2 books on Kindle, and I don't have the physical copies, but I would like to eventually get them just to kind of have in the library. But the first book that I read was the Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. The only other Abby Jimenez book that I have read was Yours Truly, and I really enjoyed that. I think I gave it a 4 stars. I was very surprised by how well her characters are developed and how much depth they have. It is just kind of like a goofy, fun rom-com, but there's actually a lot of relatable issues that are tackled and talked about in that book, which I really appreciated. I liked that it kind of went a little bit deeper than the surface. So I gave that one a 4 out of 5 stars. And I think I remember scrolling through her other books that she had written after I finished Yours Truly, because I was like, oh, maybe there's something else that I want to read of hers. And I found the Happy Ever After playlist. It is it's a rock star romance, or it's a pop star romance or something like that, which immediately took me back to the Wattpad days of just finding the cheesiest trope of all time and really having a lot of fun with that. And so that one kind of piqued my interest just because I, as an adult woman, have never read a book with that trope or premise. This was the time, and it was very cheap on Kindle, so I thought, why the heck not? Let's do it. So the Happy Ever After playlist follows Sloane is our main female character, and Jason, who is our rock star romantic lead. And another thing that I love about Abby Jimenez books is that all of her books have a dog as a main character. So that also was interesting to me. Basically, Sloane finds this dog whose name is Tucker. She almost hits him with her car in the middle of the road, and she takes him home and tries for weeks to find his owner. She's calling him, she's putting up flyers, she sees if he has a microchip at the vet, and is not hearing anything. She's not hearing back. So she's like, oh my gosh, I think I'm stuck with this dog, basically. Sloane at the time is grieving the loss of her fiance from 2 years ago and kind of slipped into depression, slipped into just not really moving forward with her life, is not working on hobbies anymore, is not really doing anything for her career and her job. But when Tucker comes, all of a sudden she's like forced to take care of herself in order to take care of Tucker. So instead of laying in bed all day and wasting away, she has to get up at 7 a.m. because Tucker is an early riser, and she takes him on walks, and she has to make money in order to take him to the vet and buy food for him. And so all of a sudden, because she has to take care of this dog, she kind of starts taking care of herself, and her life turns around. So then she's happy and she has this dog, and all of a sudden his owner calls and is like, oh, I want my dog back. Turns out that his owner, Jason, is in Australia or New Zealand or something, traveling for work and trying to write music and do rock star things. There's a lot of digital communication in the beginning of the book, which I don't know why, but I really like it. I really like when we can read text message correspondence, and that's kind of how their relationship develops. I just think it's cute if it's done well. And I think that this was done well. And then over time, their relationship kind of progresses. Jason comes back to LA. They go on a couple dates, and they basically really quickly fall in love. They are both wary because of how fast they make a connection, but at the same time, they're like, this is amazing. Let's just go for it. And that is the first 50% of the book. And I loved it. The second 50% of the book is so frustrating that I was really angry when I was reading it. I think in my Goodreads review, I said, the first 50% of this book is one of my favorite books I've ever read. The second 50% was one of my least favorite books I've ever read. It's just miscommunication, immaturity, complications that are keeping them apart, and it feels like the author was trying to drag out this story that actually could have been really simple and really easy, and it just wasn't, but she was trying to drag it out to make like a conflict, but I think it worked against her. This one I gave a 3.5. I maybe should have given it a 3, but I really did enjoy the front half of it so much that giving it a 3 just doesn't feel like it gives that justice. So for the first 50% of the book, I'm giving it a 3.5. And then the second book that I read on Kindle was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is one that, oh my gosh, I can't escape on the internet. Everybody rates this as one of their favorite books of all time. It is consistently 5 stars, and I wanted to give this one a chance, if not to see what the hype is about. This is basically about our two main characters that at one point in their life share the same apartment, but they're sharing the apartment 7 years apart from each other. So our female main character is living in the present, and our male main character is living in the past. This book is basically a perfect combination of the movies Just Like Heaven and The Lake House. And if you've never seen either of those movies, but you've read this book and you love it, what are you doing? They meet each other in this apartment, but 7 years apart. And then they fall in love in this apartment. But the problem is that they are not in love in the present tense. And what happens when you meet somebody and you love them 7 years ago, and then they've completely changed and are a totally different person later on. And that's kind of what they're dealing with. That's basically it. That's the whole conflict, is them trying to find each other in the present. And it was really cute. It was really well written. I loved just the whole premise of it. I actually think that she handled the time travel really well, because she didn't explain it a bunch where you could start poking holes in it, but she did give you enough information that like I didn't need to question it. I didn't need anything else, honestly. So that wasn't a problem for me. Their relationship was really sweet, and the way that it developed was really sweet. I just think it fell a little bit flat for me with the dialogue and the interactions between characters. I thought the story was so great, but we're being told that these characters' emotions are developing towards each other really strongly, but I'm not really seeing it. I'm not seeing their dialogue. I'm not seeing what they seen in each other to fall in love, but I still really liked it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Also, the cover is so pretty, and for that alone, I really need to get a hard copy, but they're out of stock in all the bookstores around me. So it was really great, and I loved it, and I would highly recommend. And then the last book that I read, which I'm sure comes as no surprise to anybody because this is on basically every single person's April reading roundups, is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Oh, and Emily Henry is still, I say this every time, she is a master of dialogue. She just knows how to make two characters talk to each other. It's so fun to watch and so fun to read and experience everything with them. So Funny Story is about Miles and Daphne and a little bit about Peter and Petra. Daphne is engaged to Peter. Miles is engaged to Petra. Peter and Petra are childhood best friends, but never became anything else. At the beginning of the book, Peter leaves Daphne and Petra leaves Miles, and they get together and they get engaged to be married. Daphne and Miles are very sad and upset, and Daphne was living with Peter and does not have a place to live anymore. So Miles is like, you can live with me. So they start living together. And the beginning of the book is just reading about two very sad, very depressed people. And it was pretty unflattering and unattractive, especially for Miles to get introduced to our main male character and not really like him that much. I've seen a lot of people compare the book to New Girl and Miles to Nick Miller. And Miles definitely has some Nick Miller vibes, but like early seasons Nick Miller? No, not even early seasons. Post Jess and Nick breakup, pre-getting famous with the Pepperwood Chronicles. That Nick Miller where he's just like a slob and doesn't take care of himself and everybody talks about how they slipped $20 into his jeans before putting it in the dryer. That's what Miles reminded me of in the beginning of this book. And I didn't love it because I kind of was expecting, you know, as you do, I want to like this main character. I want him to, as silly as it is, be the Prince Charming, you know? But Miles and Daphne start living together. And slowly they kind of start to come out of their sadness and depression and move into anger and revenge. And that looks like fake dating each other to try and make Peter and Petra jealous. So now we have a forced roommate scenario and we have a fake dating scenario. You can imagine how that goes. They fall in love and then they have to go through some complications. And Peter and Petra decide, you know, maybe they don't want to get married and everything is thrown and everything gets chaotic and it's crazy and all these things happen. Eventually, I do start to like Miles, which is good. I think he was just, Emily Henry just introduced him in a really dark place and wrote him, honestly, pretty accurately. And I do really like Daphne, and I really like their interactions. They were just kind of sweet and innocent and cute. There were a couple miscommunication tropes that I didn't love. I always get really annoyed with those because just like, this is something that could very, very, very easily be avoided, but it's not. And I don't like when authors put it in there because it kind of feels like they're just trying to find a drama point because they've written such a good story that's so happy and they're like, ooh, I need a conflict to try and pull this all together. Enter the miscommunication trope. Don't love it. So there were a bit of hints and traces of this, but overall, I really enjoyed it. And again, the dialogue of Emily Henry, she's so good. She's such a genius with it and makes me laugh, and it's clever and it's witty and it really convinces you that these characters are falling in love. Like, I believe their relationship. So I gave this one a 4.5 stars, which means that we did not find a 5-star book this month, but that's okay. We had generally some pretty high ranking ones, but I also have here the TBR jar that I want to pick a couple for May just for fun because I like doing this and I haven't done one since March. I didn't do one for April at all. I thought I would, but again, the reading slump hit pretty hard. So I'm gonna pick a couple prompts now and then go get the books and bring them back. Let's see what we got first. As a reminder, my husband made all of these prompts. I have no idea what they say. I know there's one that just says read Great Gatsby though, so we'll see if we get that one. I think I'm gonna choose 4 books. A book with a male protagonist, a book with a number in the title, ask ChatGPT what to read, and a book that intimidates you. All right, I'll be right back. Oh, I'm back. Okay, we have got some books. So, first one, a book that intimidates you. Honestly, could have gone for a couple different things here, but I ended up picking Susanna Clark's, I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, but Piranesi. I don't know why this one intimidates me so much. I don't really even know a ton about it, except that it's weird and kind of confusing, but people love it, but it's weird. And I don't know what it's about, and that's all that I can really talk about right now. The second one is a book with a male protagonist. This one was easy for me. The Will of the Many. It's going around booktube and booktok and bookstagram like crazy right now. People are loving it. And I am really, really excited to read The Will of Many. It's by James Islington, and I think it's kind of it takes place in a magical school, and supposedly the magic system is just really interesting. It's really thick, and I'm a little bit scared about it because this is very, very different to all of the books that I read in April, which is a little bit scary, but we're gonna give it a shot. I know I want to read it really soon. I'm gonna try to read it in May and see what happens. The third one is a book with a number in the title. I had a lot of trouble finding something with a number in the title that I hadn't already read, but I did have One Dark Throne by Kendare Blake. I have read the first book. I think this is in a trilogy. I read the first book, which is Three Dark Crowns. I read this in 2017, 2018, a long time ago. I remember really, really liking it, but for some reason I bought the sequel and just never ended up finishing it. I don't know why. It's just one of those things where you read the first book, you love it, and then just lose steam reading the next ones. So I know it's about three sisters that are basically fighting for one throne, and only one of them can remain. Yeah, we'll see if I get to this. We'll see how it goes. And then the last prompt, of course, is ask ChatGPT what to read. I don't know if I should put any other guidelines with this or just straight up ask it what to read. What should my next read be? It wants me to tell it what type of books I enjoy. It told me to read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, which is one of my favorite books of all time. But I've already read it, so I'm gonna ask you for another prompt to see what it gives me. And the next one it gave me was Circe, which is also another book that I have read and love. I guess it's kind of creepy. The Name of the Wind. Interesting. The Name of the Wind is a heroic fantasy novel by Patrick Rothfuss. It's the first book in a series, and it was originally published in 2007. The Name of the Wind. And then this was not part of the TBR jar, but I also really want to read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which just came out. I got it from Book of the Month. I'm very excited about this one, which I know a lot of people are, and a lot of people have been reading it recently. So this, and then my ChatGPT book coming at you in May. That's all. See you next time.